You know, whether you're at home or you're traveling on the road or you're camping, this isn't your first line of defense. This is a last resort. Well, the views I'm expressing here in this video are strictly my own. This is my own opinion. It's what I've done all my life. It's the things that I practice. Your mileage may vary. Well, today I'm down along the Missouri River in this small town of 60,000 that I live in. The area I'm showing you is within the city limits. This is a farming and ranch town, and it covers many square miles, so we can still consider it a small town. In my last video, or one of the last videos, I talked about whether or not it's still safe to go camping. And the focus was on, or my point was that camping is the same as being at home. I don't think it's any less safe. I just think it's a different kind of situation that you're putting yourself in, that's all. Of course, a lot of folks, they immediately brought up how they protect themselves, you know, in the comment section it was mostly about that. But is it really necessary to protect yourself while you're traveling and while you're camping? If you do so, how are you going to do that? You willing to get the proper training? Where will you carry this device? Would you keep it locked in a box in your locked car? Keep it locked in your RV? Now, you know what I'm talking about. You have to carry it on your person, otherwise it doesn't do you any good. But I'm not here just to talk to you about that. I'm here to talk to you about what you really need to do to protect yourself while you're on the road. Frankly, I don't think camping has changed. I think it was dangerous in the past, and I think it's just as dangerous now. Main thing is that you be aware and you be prepared. Think about this. When you're home, before you go to bed at night, I'll bet you lock your doors and close your curtains and turn the front porch light on. It's the same thing when you're camping or when you're traveling. Your campsite, that's your home. Your RV, that's your domicile. That's where you live. So you need to take the same types of precautions there that you would anywhere. Although some of the dangers are a little different. If somebody rings your doorbell at home, don't you look through the peephole to see who's standing outside before you swing that door open? And it's the same thing camping, you know, somebody knocks on your trailer door, would you look out the window or whatever and kind of prepare yourself for who or what might be on the other side? And ask questions too, right? Man, is this beautiful or what? Just because you head out into the woods or out into the desert or something, it doesn't mean that there's some homicidal maniac out there waiting to kill you. If that was the case, then people that live out in the country, like our farmers and ranchers here, they'd all be dead. You know, you see Linda and I, and we're carrying, you know, when we're out in the desert, and you see Linda, she's packing, you know. But that's for snakes. We keep snake pellets loaded. That's the first 2 rounds that are in those, and that's what we have there mainly for. But also we're prepared for whatever else might come along too. Now, if you're in the mountains, there's bears and there's mountain lions. There's mountain lions out in the desert too, actually. But that's another thing you need to be prepared for. If you're one of those people that goes hiking and thinks, I don't need to carry bear spray, or I don't need to carry a fire type of arm on me, then you must think you have some kind of magical power or something, because it happens. And if you think that bad things don't happen to good people, well, then you're mistaken, because it does. And when you're at home or when you're out anywhere, you need to protect yourself, because the police aren't going to do that for you. And even at home, you call 911, it's, what is it, like 40 minutes average time before they show up? You're gone by then. So just like being at home, you're the one who's responsible for your own protection. That most likely means that there's a deer bedded down in the brush up here. Good day to sit back and just take it easy. When I was a kid, my folks, whenever I'd be heading out on some kind of excursion or something, my folks would warn me about the dangers, and they would always tell me about Carol Chessman, the red light bandit. I guess he was from like the 1930s or something, and he'd get behind you and he'd flash on his red light and pull you over, and then he'd murder you and steal your stuff. You know how many times I heard that story? But I ventured out anyway, and I was better off for it. But your first line of defense is your own vigilance and being aware of what's around you. In that video on Is Camping Still Safe, we mentioned, pulling into a campsite and looking around you. What kind of garbage did you see? Is it just cans and some styrofoam cups, or is there rubbish that people have dumped? You might look and see if there's cartridge cases laying on the ground, Maybe that's where the locals like to go target practice. It may not make it any less safe for you, but it might be a little noisy. And when you pull into a campsite, and maybe a campground with some other folks, I mentioned that you needed to check people out. And you do. Because you need to be aware of the kind of people that are around you. You don't have to snoop or stare or something like that. Like one person mentioned in the comments, he said, don't be rude. Well, don't be rude. But at the same time, take a look. Notice what kind of stuff they have laid out all over their camp. Is it normal camping equipment? Or is it barrels and boxes and things like that? You might be camped next to somebody who's doing something illegally there in the woods or something, and that might not be a good place for you to be. I mentioned using your sixth sense. Well, that's just another word for awareness, and that spooky feeling you get sometimes when you're somewhere where you're not supposed to be. But I think everybody has that if you just pay attention to it. If things don't feel good, get out. Go somewhere else. It's just not worth it. Other precautions you need to take while you're camping is, think about this. Would you take your expensive generator and stick it out on the front lawn of your house and then just go to bed and expect it to be there the next morning? Probably not, and it might not be when you get up. So if you're camping, why would you set your generator up and your barbecue up and everything and then jump in the car and go fishing? Why would you expect something bad isn't going to happen just because you're camping? Not true. So the other things too, like if you are in a campground with other people, then you don't want to be wearing expensive clothing. You don't want to be showing off expensive toys. That's inviting trouble. Also, you want to be a good camper yourself. You don't want to be laughing loud, in the evening times when other people are trying to have a quiet evening. You don't want to be talking loud and boisterously and laughing. You don't want to be playing loud music. You don't want to give other people a reason to not like you. That's not a good idea. You need to be a good neighbor yourself. And when you go into a campground, And I tell you, you look around, that's important. Hey, look at it this way. When you moved into your apartment or bought your house or whatever, didn't you check out the neighborhood before you agreed to move in? Before you agreed to buy the place or rent the place? I know that here in my town, before we ever bought a place, we always drove down the alleys, because what you see in the backyard tells you a lot more than what you see in the front yard. It's just a thing you do. You need to choose where you're going to be. It's important when you're out camping too. But I got to tell you, when we're out boondocking and we're out in some remote area, the last thing on my mind is another person. I mean, thieves are in town. They're the ones that are back breaking into your garage, you know? Probably while you're gone on this camping trip. Let's hope not. But anyways, when I'm way out like that, there's nobody around. The main thing I'm concerned about is basically the rattlesnakes, like I told you, and animals. That's the main thing. Hey, speaking of those rattlesnakes, if you happen to see one in front of you, you see me carrying a stick when I'm hiking. That's because I'm rattling the grass and the bushes in front of me as I go, kind of like a blind man going down the street. But that's me in the bush. I do the same exact thing. But remember, the thing about rattlesnakes is a lot of times they travel in pairs. So the one that you see in front of you may not be the one that's going to bite you from the rear. I had a friend that was bird hunting, and that happened to him. He saw the one rattling in front of him, and he started to back up, and the other one bit him in the leg. Not good, because there was no cell phone service, and he suffered a lot before his partner finally got him out. And talk a little bit here, if you do decide to carry, it's something I started doing back when I was about 21. I was a bartender, kind of a rowdy bar, and you know, there's times when you got to cut people off and you got to escort them to the door, and they're saying, "Oh, I'm going to meet you in the parking lot." And you know, so when you get off work, you never know. So I started carrying, and then I realized that I needed to also be the one who escorted my cocktail waitresses out. Remember, I was just a young man. So I did that, and then of course getting married, I had to protect Linda. She was such a cute little bugger. And still is. And then children came along, and you know, you realize you got to protect your family. At some point it dawned upon me that no matter where I went, the shopping mall, the grocery store, wherever I went, that if you're carrying like that, you're also responsible for whoever else is around you. And that leads to another discovery. And that's that, of course, this came early on. This didn't come later. I realized that it made me so much more vigilant. And the reason is, you don't want to have to use it. You know what I mean? You don't want to have to do that. You don't want to have to pull that out. So you're extra careful to stay out of situations that might put you in that kind of a position. And it's just true. And anybody who carries will tell you the same thing, I'm sure. They'll say that it's made them way more aware, because that's a situation you want to avoid. It's a heavy responsibility too. And just because you're carrying doesn't mean that you're safe. Your safety depends on a lot of things before that ever comes to be an issue, just like I mentioned. It's not a be-all, end-all. That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of things you need to think about whenever you're out and about. Well, I want to get home and have some hot coffee. But in conclusion, I really don't think that camping is any more dangerous than living at home, or being at home. I think it's just a different set of dangers that you need to be aware of. You need to prepare a little differently. You need to act a little differently maybe. But don't let your fears hold you back. Just get out there and enjoy this beautiful world that God gave us. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you around.